Well, welcome to another podcast of Bridgepoint Church. I'm your host, Matthew Peters, and at Bridgepoint, we exist to lead people to be fully devoted followers of Jesus. And today, we have a very special guest. We have Bridgepoint's youth pastor with us, RJ Snyder. So
Hello.
Awesome to have you with us today, RJ.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, so RJ and I have been doing ministry for a couple of years now. It's just been one of the most privileged and exciting experiences of my life. I've been doing ministry for over 20 years, and he's just been one of the greatest guys to work with. And so it's great to have him with us today. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was being a person who's sincere in your faith and yet not be perfect, and how to grow in grace. And particularly, for us as people who are paid in ministry, like that's what we do professionally, right? That's a lot of pressure because we know the expectations that are laid out in Scripture for a person who's going to be in ministry.
Right.
We know that person is supposed to be basically above reproach. And we know there are a lot of different places in Scripture, like 1 Timothy and Titus, and other places that describe, what the expectations are of us. And, I was reminded recently that, I'm, as a teacher, I'm held to a higher standard, and the Bible even talks about teachers, in 1 Timothy talks about teachers being worthy of double honor. And we know that double honor means they get the first honor, which is they get to serve God. And the second honor is that you pay them.
Right.
And there comes a really high expectation, justifiably so, right? Because we want men of integrity to be teaching the gospel, right? You don't entrust, Paul doesn't say entrust it to anybody, trust it to reliable and worthy
Right.
men who are going to deliver the gospel, right? And that's who we want to be, but we're not perfect.
Right. So what happens when we mess up?
That's right. How do we feel? And, primarily this isn't just for people who are in ministry, but it's for anyone who wants to have a leadership role in the church or anyone who takes their walk with Christ seriously, because everyone wants to be obeying the Lord, and yet every single one of us stumbles, we fall, we willfully grieve the Holy Spirit, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like trash afterwards. And we haven't even got to what people can do to you and say to you as a minister. We're more primarily interested in what happens inside here and in our hearts. So tell me some of the things that you've been experiencing, that we've been talking about, and what God's been showing you in that area. And let's see if the things that he's showing us can bring encouragement to others.
Right. I think a couple things for me in particular that we've talked about. I know last week we talked about just the prodigal son in this story in Luke 15,
Right.
And how it's surrounded by a couple other parables about the lost sheep and the lost coin.
Yep.
And how there's always a celebration factor. Like the father always celebrates, and the person who finds it always celebrates.
Yeah, like the woman who sweeps her whole house. She's like, she pulls out all the stops, she moves everything, sweeps everything, and then when she finds the coin, she just throws a party. She goes nuts, right? She tells everyone about it.
Yep. And same thing with the shepherd. Same thing with the father of the prodigal son.
Yeah.
They all throw a party, a celebration, like we found the lost one. And so, not that coins or sheep have feelings or talking to anybody, but kind of like the son or the other son, who was like, why didn't I ever get a party? I'm sure the other sheep could have been like, well, I've been here the whole time and I didn't run off,
right?
Being stupid.
Yeah.
Or maybe the other coins are like, hey, I've been in your pocket this whole time. I've been a good coin.
Yeah, seriously,
Right?
you didn't have to sweep the house for me.
Right. And so there's this aspect of for me where I'm the prodigal son who is continually just trying to return to God, but I'm also the other son who's like, how can you ever come back to God? And so I almost ask God for forgiveness, but then I doubt that I should be forgiven at the same time. And so dealing with that, and a part of it is being in ministry, is there is that higher standard, right? So I feel like for me, it's just like it sometimes weighs on you when you mess up. You're I'm in ministry. I should like how did I ever
Yeah.
get there? Or how did I do that? And so on the other side, like, you're really gonna throw a party for this guy, God? Like, and God's like, hey, I'm gonna throw a party for you, RJ. Like, you're returning to me. Like, you repented. You're fine.
Yeah.
Now get back up and walk in obedience.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I've been learning. We can dig deeper into that if you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, one of the things that I really have connected with you on is how when our hearts don't fully follow God and we feel that we've maybe by some people's standards disqualified ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
By what we've said or what we've done, or maybe even our thought life, and one of the things that's been very hard for me is to get over that internal dialogue that you have with yourself that is quite negative when you've really messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in the story of the prodigal son. He basically wishes his dad dead, snatches up his part of the inheritance,
Right.
runs off and blows it all on wild living, as it says. And the older brother basically says he spent it on prostitutes. I mean, that's pretty low. Okay. Right. Like, to blow your inheritance on like drinking, gambling, and prostitutes. This is not good. Okay. And so then he recognizes how far gone he is, and he has this inner dialogue, and he says, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say I'm not worthy, and I'm not going to be in the family. I'm just going to be a hired servant, and just so I can eat something, put food in my tummy. Like, he has this inner dialogue that has demoted him from his status as a son.
Right.
Right? And so he's got this, he has not behaved like a son. Okay?
Right.
Let's just accept that. Right? But the father is not looking at him the way his internal dialogue goes. His father is literally, in order for us to really understand, it appears as if the dad gets up every day and he looks out over the road looking for his son to come. Mm-hmm. And when his son does come, he does the most absurd thing. He hikes up his clothes so that he can run, his tunic, and he runs, which is like so shameful for him to expose his legs and then to run. Right?
Especially in that culture.
Right. And he won't even let the son complete the inner dialogue that he tries to articulate to his dad. Dad, I'm not worthy. And he's like, nope. And he's like, put a ring on him, put a royal robe on him, kill the fattened calf. We're going to have a party now. My son has been lost and now he's found. Mm-hmm. And this expresses this overwhelming perspective of love that the Father has for us. And it is so hard for us as ministers of the gospel or people who are sincere in our faith when we have really fallen to believe that our inner dialogue that we're not worthy to be sons is the one that won't win the day, but that the dialogue of the Father that we're sons is so powerful, and that is so hard for us to absorb. So hard for us.
Right.
So, I've experienced this, and just wanted to talk with you about how you've experienced it and what it's looked like in your life, and talk to us a little bit about the things that God is showing you of His character that we're learning together. Yeah.
So in Luke 15, to go back to the story we were just talking about, the prodigal son, and just the Father's just abundant grace and abundant love for the Son, because whether you're in ministry or not, we've all done stuff to disqualify ourselves as sons or daughters. Like, our sin has separated us from the Father.
Yeah.
We have ran off with our own form of prostitutes, our own form of gambling. And
right,
so,
it's just on a spectrum, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so we've all done these things to disqualify, but then in comes this perfect Son, Jesus, who just steps in the way for us and says, no, like, I know you've done all those things, but I've taken them all upon myself, and now I'm going to reconnect you to the Father. And so, just the amount of grace he has for ministers and for people alike is that he would care for us so much that even while we were doing those things, even while we were separated from him, he says, I'm still going to send my son for you because I love you and I care for you because I am your father. Like, I am someone who cares about you enough to send my son for you. And so him just reconnecting me to himself through his son is just like I definitely did not deserve that. But again, he doesn't give me the moment to say how unworthy I am. He just says, no, I sent my son. Like, he intercedes for me. Christ does. Christ intercedes for me.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to have the thing about the inner dialogue that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So we have this inner dialogue. We're like, I'm not a son. I did this.
Right.
God could never love me.
Yeah.
There's also this second conversation that's happening away from us with Jesus and the Father saying, he is a son, he is a son, he is a son. And so there's two dialogues always going on.
Yeah, man.
And we have to listen into the intercession of Christ more than we listen for
because he
ourselves.
lives to continually intercede for us.
Right.
You know, I think about the book of Hebrews is like this amazing treasure of who Jesus is and what he's done for us. And it says very clearly that he can help us in our time of need because he has experienced everything that we've experienced.
Right.
And so, and then he lives to intercede for us. And, you know, that dialogue that you're talking about is actually the more real reality.
Right.
Not necessarily how we're feeling, but really what Christ has done and is doing. Wow, that's pretty intense. The other one that comes to mind is in Romans chapter 8, it says that if he who did not spare his own son, how will he not, along with him, graciously give us all things? And it's sort of like, what? It's like gospel logic is, if God was so serious about his son coming and dying for us, that shows you how much he loves us. And if his son died for us, why would he give up on the children that he has adopted through the death and resurrection of Jesus and the outpouring of the Holy Spirit? He is not going to throw that away. He paid with his own blood. We're precious to him.
Right.
You know, and it's like when we stumble or when we're tempted and we are straying away and grieving the Spirit, it's hard for us to get our internal dialogue in tune with the heavenly dialogue.
Right.
That's what's tough for me. And then sometimes, do you ever have doubts and say, yeah, maybe I'm not worth it? Like maybe I just messed it up so much and I should just throw in the towel.
Right. Yeah, I think something that I've been thinking about, just a twofold thing, just a couple things, is just with this sense of like, oh, I'm like, I've fallen, like it's almost like Life Alert. You're like, oh, I've fallen and I can't get up. You're like stuck in the bathtub.
That's actually how it feels.
You're like, oh, God.
Oh my goodness gracious. It's a little too real for me because
it's
people make fun of the commercials all the time, but it's actually how you feel.
Yeah, and so you're like, wow. I don't know what to do. And so I'm reminded in Philippians when Paul writes, like, he who began a good work in you
will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Wow.
Right, and so with me and being in ministry, with you being in ministry, and we fall, it's like, oh, I shouldn't, like, why am I even in ministry? Why do I do this? And he's like, hey, I started this good work in you. Yeah. I've called you to ministry. Don't doubt it, but just trust that I'll carry it out. And I think within that, like I've been thinking about, is just when I fall, it makes me like, the devil wants it to carry us away from grace, wants to carry us out of it, like we're not deserving, like we don't deserve it, of course, but he wants to carry us away so we doubt it, that we can never have it, we can't touch it. But God says, no, this is my grace for you. And really what sin does, like in Romans 6, it doesn't increase the amount of grace that he's given to us. He's already given us, an abundant amount of grace that overflows every sin that we've ever committed. But it makes me more dependent upon that grace. Like, for a ministry to be successful, really okay, like people have to do good stuff. Like they have to have good planning, administration, good scheduling, all that stuff. Like that's always good stuff. You have to have good leaders.
Right.
But behind every good leader in the church is someone who's absolutely dependent upon God and God's grace.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I fall, it's like, okay, like, what does this teach me to be more dependent upon God's grace? Because I know my ministry, I clearly just showed my ministry can't be successful based on my own doings.
Yeah.
And so that's where God's grace steps in. It's like, no, I'm going to make your ministry successful through my grace,
Mm-hmm.
because I've started this work and I want to complete it and bring it about in your life. And so that's something I've been like thinking about and dwelling on. That's one of the things.
So one of the things I wanted to go back on was, talking about how we feel inside in terms of our sense of conviction.
Mm-hmm.
Scripture speaks very clearly that there's a godly sorrow that leads to repentance, and we know that repentance is a turning, a 180 of the mind and of the action.
Right.
That is empowered by the Spirit of God, so that there's change, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that that's what repentance is. But it also says that, like, there's a godly sorrow that leads to repentance, but the devil can use guilt to destroy you.
Yeah.
Because he is the accuser. The scriptures, in Revelation, it says the accuser of the brothers has been hurled down forever. And we know that because Jesus died on the cross for us, and we know that the Father always had us as his treasured possession in his eyes all the time, aiming for that day where he could send his Son to fully pay for that and defeat the accuser. It's like, are we gonna let the devil win by lying to us and telling us that we're worthless and that we're not worthy of redemption?
Right. And
then, I don't know about you, but when I was very early in ministry, I was pretty green. I mean, not that I'm some kind of champion hero. I always want to grow, right? But like when I was younger, I did a lot of really stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, well, I stumbled there, so I might as well keep stumbling because, and then I would give in to temptation and just allow the devil to lie to me and say, well, now that you really messed up, you're worthless, so you might as well just give up on God.
Right.
And live the way your temptation, and then your temptation begins to push you around, and his lies and accusations begin to destroy your heart, and it's absolutely toxic. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that just really changed my mind is when I started realizing that he's an accuser. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things, I'm not saying the devil can make you think thoughts, or I'm not trying to go spooky weird on people, but I do believe that there is a supernatural influence where the devil can try to take you down. Ephesians talks about these flaming arrows of the evil one. Well, what exactly are those flaming arrows if they're not accusations? I mean, it's not simply just accusations, but I certainly think that accusations are one of his main arsenal weapons to take us down. And like, if we allow those accusations to rule us and to overthrow the truth that we have a loving Heavenly Father that runs to us and wants to have us as his cherished kids, right? And he's proven that love by having Jesus die for us. Like, we're allowing a lie to completely distort our hearts and destroy us. I'm like, I don't want any part in that, man.
Right.
I just want to be like, no. Like, shields up in faith. I'm not gonna. The accuser, you cannot accuse me. No weapon that is fashioned. This is Isaiah 54 says, no weapon that is fashioned against you will stand. No accusation that can be formed against you will stand. And I read that this past week, and I was sort of like, wowed again. I mean, I read it actually after we had started talking about this podcast, and just thought, man, that is really powerful for us to remember that the accuser cannot defeat us, and we have to listen to the truth, which is that we are cherished, loved, and redeemed children of the living God.
Right.
Boom.
Right.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little more. Anything else that we want to talk about today?
I think the last thing I've been thinking about this as well is just when it comes to grace and when it comes to just realizing just your deep need for this grace in your life. A lot of times we look at like the biblical characters. We look at Paul. We look at Peter. We look at James. We look at all these different people, and you're like, wow, those are some guys that like, had it together, like heroes of the Bible. But they're like no, like they needed like God's grace so much, and so like sometimes we try to emulate our lives after these biblical characters rather than following the command of Jesus, like be perfect like me. Like that's our goal, is being, not that we would ever be perfect on this side of heaven, but that we're being perfected. We're becoming more like Christ. We're not trying to become more like Paul because he's not perfect. Yeah. He was a murderer before.
Well, yeah, and I don't mean to besmirch the Apostle Paul, but
no,
he seems like a guy that was difficult to get along with.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the class example was Barnabas, who was the son of encouragement. Basically, he was the golden retriever of the early church. Like everybody loved Barnabas. Like he was the guy they're like, dude, you don't like Barnabas? Mm-hmm. There is something wrong with you. You know what I mean? Right. And he and Paul had a split.
Right.
And it just shows that like God can use anybody. You take David, Moses, Solomon, any of these people that God used mightily, like you can think of some examples where they really messed it up, and not just once, but a lot. Mm-hmm. And God basically, I think one of the greatest encouragements that I have is, reinforced even more solidly in the new covenant of Jesus's blood, right? But for sure, all the way through redemptive history, God is basically saying, listen, if I'm going to use you to glorify my name and bring about redemption of my people, it's going to happen.
Right.
And God can use anyone. Doesn't matter what you did, doesn't matter where you came from. And we as ministers of the gospel have to remind ourselves that, because if we don't believe it for ourselves, how can we offer it to others? Mm-hmm. So it's great to meet with you today and just talk about God's grace. Mm-hmm. And hopefully people have learned a little bit more about what it looks like to process things spiritually as a spiritual leader. We're so glad that you joined us today. Yep. If you like the video, share it with a friend. Leave us a message, and we'd love to get back to you. We are here to lead people to be fully devoted followers of Jesus, and thanks for stopping by.